Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial by EClip. As many of you already asked about mixing tip, this is going to be a first mixing tip, and it's how to use a distortion to improve your mixes. Loudness war in the last several years has changed the way of mixing, and all of us should be aware that the form of mixing has changed a lot in the previous years, and many techniques that have been used in the past for different genres will not work for electronic music. Many of you have heard about many techniques that tells that we should keep dynamic of the tracks, but most of those techniques cannot be implemented for electronic music, and especially not for a Psytrance. Psytrance has a really loud kicks and bass that are going through the 70% of the track, and this is the main idea of the Psytrance, to be loud and to rock all the time using a lot of power and delivering a lot of energy to the dance floor. Now, we all want our tracks to be powerful, fat and loud. The only dynamic that we have in our music is the difference between intro, breaks and the main part. In our main part, where kick and bass are running, we cannot accept any dynamic, as those elements do not allow us. Kick is loud, bass is loud, and between two kicks usually have 3 bass notes, and there is no dynamic. So we are coming to the part where we call dynamic a difference between peaks and RMS. To bring loudness, we need to bring RMS to the loudest point without destroying the peaks, and this is where distortion can help us. Some distortion plugins have some fantastic algorithms for burning out the peaks, which allow us to bring RMS more loud, and my 2 favorite plugins for this are Sound Toys Decapitator and FabFilter Saturn. Now, before I finish my mix, I always put a limiter on the master channel, and I try to bring the whole track to the desired level, which is usually -4 RMS for me, and I will check which of those sounds from the project are actually going to be burned up by a limiter. So I like the FabFilter Pro L2 the most in true peak mode, as I can see graphically which of those sounds are actually going to be burned out, and I will check one by one and going and try to fix them inside the mix. So let's solo the drums only, kick and bass and the rest of the drums. As I could see here, those peaks are coming from the snare mostly. So okay, I will try to show you just kick and bass and the snare. And as you can see here, when snare hits in, this is the moment where I have the most of the peaks. So now, let's bring Saturn on the snares. Here I'm using the Saturn 1, because Saturn 2 just got released several days ago, and I'm used on this one. But there's also, for Saturn 2, I already downloaded the Try one, and it's just called different, I think, Warm Transformer. So basically you just drop in the Saturn, and from this default settings you just choose the broken tube and turn it on. And let's check the peaks of the snare here without. -0.4, and with Saturn with like 9% of the drive in the broken tube mode. And on 67% is like -2.5, and if we bring up to 100, -3.5 is the difference. And if you could hear, it's only like the first part of transient that is kind of missing from the snare. So basically, once again, just broken tube and drive you can put up a little bit, and if you put a little bit more drive, you will get kind of low information on the snare, and that you can fix just by dropping down the band 1, like the bass one, for 23. But this is better for hi-hats. Even the snare, I like when it has the low end, and for me it's kind of really nice sounding. And by this we saved from snare, we saved like 3 dB. And now when you go one by one for the rest of the hi-hats, especially open hi-hat and the close hi-hat that goes in the same place as open hi-hat, we'll have the most of the peaks. And I'm gonna show you this one next. Now we are moving to the part where all the hi-hats and snare and all the drum stems are playing, and let's check the levels on the limiter, how much of them limiter actually is taking. As you can see, those 2 channels, like closed hi-hat and open hi-hat, I have really strong closed hi-hat here because I really like to have a punch on this one. Just to have a clue with the kick and bass. It goes on the same place like the open hi-hat, and it's like a support, like a transient support for the open hi-hat. And I already put it here, the Saturn, so I'll just turn it on. Actually, let's check the level before and after. So minus 7.3 with Saturn, and without Saturn minus 4.9, so minus 5 almost. So that is also like 2 dB of difference, and 13% of drive is on it. And for that one, for the closed one, and for open hi-hat as well. So open hi-hat without Saturn, minus 5. And with it, it's like minus 7. As you can hear, there's almost no change in a sound difference. So let's check now the level on the limiter. Like without, I turned off all the Saturn inside and check how much the limiter is burning out. You can see here, minus 4.8, so almost 5 dB is taking now without the Saturn. And now I put the Saturn on the whole group of drums, like so all the hi-hats with snare, so all the stems with the hi-hats, and without Saturn, minus 0.5, and with Saturn, with like drive on 1%, let's say on 5%, minus 2.9. So only inserting Saturn on the whole bass channel of the whole loops and the hi-hats, you are able to save like 3 dB of the transient, and this is a lot for bringing up the volume of your track. So let's check now with the limiter. So this is without Saturn on the group, minus 4.5, and with limiter, minus 2.7 is the first one, but actually it's got a little bit 2.6, 2.5. So the difference is like 2 dB with settings of 15% drive. And as I said, you can reduce the low level, but it doesn't mean much, because basically what's happening, the hi-hats have the biggest transients, and they are usually the one that peaks, especially when they sound with the kick and so on, so on. So all of this you can do also with the Soundtoys Decapitator by changing the algorithms down those letters, and also changing the drive position and see where you get the best results. But I think that Soundtoys changes the sound much more than Saturn Broken Toy algorithm. And there's also a few other ways, like there is like a standard clip plugin, and you can do also this with a limiter. But if you do this on the limiter, the best is that you don't use true peak option, because if you use true peak, the peaks will go through that and you will get the same result. But with this, if you want your tracks to get loud, or before you send them to mastering, because what can happen if you send like minus 18 RMS the mix, and then you have a big difference between the peaks and RMS, and you send to mastering, and when somebody push them with a limiter or AD converter, you can lose the transients on the whole mix, and you probably can get not satisfied with the mastering. So best for me is to prepare yourself and to reduce those peaks the much as you can through all these techniques, and to be ready for the mastering session, and that way you will get the best results. That was it for this tutorial, and I hope that you like it, loved it. Subscribe, go read the blog, because I wrote the whole blog much more carefully than this video, and stay tuned until the next tutorials. Bye.